All right, let's talk about a city that, by all logic, really shouldn't exist. A global metropolis that was literally built on a strip of sand, Dubai. So, how on earth did that happen? Well, I guarantee the answer isn't what you're thinking.
It all really kicks off with this kind of haunting prophecy from Sheikh Rashid, the man who built modern Dubai. Now, you might hear that and think it's a statement of pride, but it's not. Not at all. It was a warning. And that warning, it's the tension at the very heart of this whole story. This constant fear that everything they've built could just return to sand. So let's get right to it. How do you do that? How do you go from a handful of mud huts to this city of the future, all within a single generation? And remember, you've got no fresh water, you can't grow your own food, and you have basically zero natural resources. Now, most people think they have the answer, all figured out.
And they almost always say one word: oil. But here's the thing: they're wrong. Totally wrong. Look, if this was just an oil story, Dubai would look completely different. I mean, get this. Today, oil is less than 1% of its GDP. So the real story, the much more interesting story, is how they pulled all this off without it.
So, if it wasn't oil, what was it? Well, Dubai's story isn't really about money. It's about risk. It's the story of four absolutely massive gambles. Gambles that honestly should have bankrupted the city, but instead, they turned it into a global powerhouse. Okay, so let's dive into gamble number one. You have to picture this. We're in 1958. Dubai isn't really a city yet. It's a creek. And that creek had a huge problem. So this waterway, this creek, was everything. It was their lifeline for trade, but it was slowly filling up with silt, getting shallower and shallower. The big ships, the ones with the real money and goods, they had to dock way out at sea. Sheikh Rashid's vision? It was pretty radical for the time. He just said, we're going to dig it out, make it deeper, and bring those big ships right to our doorstep. And the risk here was just immense. I mean, you have to remember, this is before they found any real oil, so they had no money. What does he do? He goes to his neighbor, Kuwait, and asks for a huge loan. Can you just imagine the pressure of that? Betting your entire people's future on borrowed cash? And guess what? The gamble paid off. Instantly. The deep water brought in those big ships, and trade just exploded. While everyone else in the region was just kind of sitting around waiting for oil to make them rich, Dubai was already out there, building a trading empire. But even with all that success, Sheikh Rashid knew it wasn't enough. Which brings us to gamble number two. And this one was even bigger, a lot bigger. If dredging the creek was like laying the foundation, this next move was like building a skyscraper on top of it. He literally pointed to a patch of empty desert and said, we're going to build the world's largest man-made harbor, right here. And you know what? Everyone thought he was nuts. Seriously, they called it Dubai's folly, a white elephant. The critics were all saying, why in the world would you build another massive port in the middle of nowhere? His answer, though, it was pure long-term vision. He said, I am not building it for today. I am building it for the year 2000. But here's the real masterstroke, the genius of it all. It wasn't just a port. He created something called the Jebel Ali Free Zone. And with it, he basically flipped the entire business model of the Middle East right on its head. He told foreign companies, hey, come here. You can own 100% of your business, and oh, by the way, you don't have to pay any taxes. It was absolutely revolutionary. And the impact? It's just staggering. Today, that so-called useless patch of sand, the Jebel Ali port and its free zone, is responsible for more than 20% of Dubai's entire GDP. Think about that. An unbelievable return on a project that pretty much everyone said was doomed to fail. Okay, so Dubai had conquered the sea. What's next? The sky. Gamble number three came about because some neighboring airlines tried to play hardball. They threatened to cut flights to Dubai, basically trying to choke off its growth. But Dubai's leaders, they didn't back down. Nope, they got aggressive. And the story of how Emirates Airlines started is, well, it's legendary. The sheikh basically grabs an aviation veteran, hands him $10 million in seed money, and gives him an ultimatum. He says, start an airline. You have two rules. Rule one, look good. Rule two, make money. And here's the kicker. No more government subsidies. The message was crystal clear. Compete or you die. Now, what that really meant was that Emirates had to be better than everyone else. because it couldn't afford to just be cheaper. So they bet big on luxury. And they also bet big on Dubai's incredible geographic position, realizing that a huge chunk of the world's population, like 2/3 of it, is within an 8-hour flight. And just like that, they turned what was a simple refueling stop into a must-visit global destination. So let's recap. They've got the port for moving goods. They've got the airline for moving people. But they knew they needed one more thing to really, truly cement their place on the world stage. They needed a symbol, an icon. And that leads us to the fourth, and maybe the most famous gamble of them all. All right, so it's the 90s now, and Dubai has its sights set on high-end tourism. The big vision? The Burj Al Arab Hotel, designed to look like the sail of a traditional boat. Beautiful, right? But there was a huge catch. They insisted it had to be built on the water, so it wouldn't cast a shadow on the fancy beach resorts. And that, my friends, created a massive engineering problem. I mean, how do you build a stable, man-made island that can handle the powerful waves of the Persian Gulf? It seemed impossible, but the solution they came up with was just genius. Instead of building a solid wall of rock to fight the waves, the engineers designed these special hollow concrete blocks. They literally absorbed the energy of the waves, kind of like a sponge. Now that is how you build a brand. When the hotel finally opened, the level of luxury was so insane, so over the top, that a journalist covering the opening felt that just calling it 5 stars didn't do it justice. So, on the spot, she called it the world's only 7-star hotel. Now that rating, it doesn't actually exist, but it didn't matter. The marketing moment was priceless, and the name stuck. So when you put it all together, what's the real lesson here? What can we take away from Dubai's unbelievable story? Well, let's go all the way back to that prophecy we started with. Because this city's transformation, it wasn't magic, and it wasn't just oil money. It was a series of 4 massive calculated risks. These were risks taken by leaders who just flat out refused to let their geography decide their future. I mean, think about it. They dredged a creek when they were broke. They built a port for ships that weren't even there yet. They launched an airline with zero protection. And they built that iconic hotel on an island that everyone said was impossible. So let's go back to that quote about the camel. It's not a prediction of doom. You have to see it for what it really is. It's the engine. It's the motivation behind everything. The leadership in Dubai, they operate every single day with this incredible urgency, almost like they're trying to prove that very prophecy wrong. They're building as if it could all just vanish tomorrow, because they know, deep down, a fundamental truth of the desert. If you stop moving, you die.
Look, Dubai didn't just happen. It willed itself into existence by taking these huge, audacious risks. And that just leaves us with one final thought, one final question to ponder. What could your city, or your company, or heck, even you, what could you achieve if you just stopped being so afraid of the future?